Colorado Springs, Judge Russo. This story is about a Colorado man who gets prison time for threatening a Cuyahoga County judge. This judge was the judge who ordered a defendant's mouth taped shut a while back. Now, this story comes out of Cleveland, Ohio. A federal judge sentenced a Colorado man to 7 months in federal prison. 7 months? For phoning a threat into this county common pleas court judge, and he left it on his answering machine. So he called this threat in, and he did this because he was reading a news story about the judge ordering the man's mouth taped shut during a hearing. Now, this guy, Michael David Miller, 22-year-old of Colorado Springs, he left the voicemail on Judge John Russo's chambers in August 3rd, 2018. And it laid out what he would do to this judge if this judge ever visited Cleveland. Now, these threats came after this guy Miller watched the video of the county sheriff's deputy. And that's the video of him being escorted in there with the duct tape on his mouth. And the guy's defendant was Franklin Williams. He was the one who had the duct tape. But he refused to stop talking during a sentencing hearing. And the video, I know I've seen it. Sure a bunch of people have, but the assistant U.S. attorney, James Lewis, he wrote in sentencing memo that Miller threatened to stab the judge in the neck with a knife repeatedly, over and over, until the blood pours down the streets of Cleveland, until justice is served for what happened. That's pretty much a threat. Now, the federal grand jury, they didn't like this guy very much because they indicted him, Mr. Miller, back in April, and he was arrested that same month. And he pled guilty in September to transmitting of a threat in interstate commerce. In addition to the 7-month prison sentence, the U.S. District Judge Solomon Oliver Jr. on Friday ordered Miller to serve 5 months of home detention upon his release. And Oliver also said Miller cannot contact Russo and cannot be in Ohio other than for court proceedings. So they kicked the guy out of the state. He ain't even allowed in Ohio. Now, the lawyer's saying the guy was in the midst of heavy substance use. Might have been drunk, who knows. But Miller, accompanied by his parents, apologized and said he is ready to live a productive life. And with his sobriety, he can achieve everything. Now, this guy, Lewis, he spoke to the judge, Russo, and the judge said that he pursued the case because it's important to stand up and say that threatening a public official is not acceptable. They're allowed to threaten us, but I guess this guy wasn't allowed to threaten him. But anyhow, this Russo and his family were under surveillance for 4 days until the law enforcement learned that Miller, the guy, had not left Colorado. But the story gets even weirder. I mean, this is just crazy. So they bust this guy, and the Russo judge didn't have any say-so on whether or not this guy got time or whatever. But the bottom of this story was this Miller guy is free on bond, but he is also waiting sentencing in a court in Colorado after pleading guilty to child porn charge. The agents found these illicit images on his iPhone during the search for the threats case, Lewis wrote in his sentencing memo. But the Miller said he entered an agreement with prosecutors to serve a 1-year prison sentence. So he's getting 1 year for threatening a judge and child porn on his phone. Justice in Colorado. Or should I say, federal court in Ohio? Either way,